You ever get that feeling that something is just off? Nothing glaring, nothing you can pinpoint right away, just a nagging sense that things don't add up? Yeah, that's where I was for months, maybe even longer. At first, I told myself I was overthinking things. She had her quirks, just like anyone else. One of them? Airplane mode. Every night, right before bed, she'd swipe down on her screen, toggle the little airplane icon, and tuck her phone away. I just want to sleep without any distractions, she said once with a sleepy smile. No notifications, no buzzing, just peace. Seemed reasonable, right? I mean, who doesn't want uninterrupted sleep? But little things started standing out. She was always quick to put her phone away when I walked into the room. Not dramatically so. Nothing obvious, just subtle enough to make me notice. A shift of the screen angle, a slight delay before locking it. And then there were the odd mood shifts. Mornings where she'd wake up already on edge, like she had been dealing with something before I even opened my eyes. Nights when she seemed a little too eager to get to bed early, shutting down conversations mid-sentence. I still didn't question it. After all, relationships are built on trust, right? Besides, she was smart, careful. There was nothing outright suspicious. Just small things, breadcrumbs that, alone, meant nothing. But strung together, they started forming a picture I didn't like. Then, one night, I was lying in bed, scrolling on my phone when the battery hit 1%. The charger? In the other room, and I didn't feel like getting up. Too cozy, too lazy. My eyes landed on her phone, sitting on the nightstand. She was fast asleep, curled up under the blankets, breathing softly. I reached for her phone, planning to pull up YouTube, maybe just a couple of videos before I dozed off myself. I pressed the power button. The lock screen lit up. And then, at exactly 3:07 a.m., the phone started vibrating. Once, twice, then again. A flood of messages. Notifications rolling in one after another. And for the first time, I noticed airplane mode was off. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just some random late-night spam. This was something else. Something I wasn't supposed to see. I felt a chill run down my spine. Just moments ago, I had only wanted to watch a couple of YouTube videos before falling asleep, but now I was gripping a piece of reality I was never meant to see. The phone kept vibrating, the screen flickering with a relentless stream of notifications. I didn't move. I just watched as the flood of messages consumed the display. The first lines knocked the breath out of me. God, I can't wait any longer. When are you going to tell him? I thought you were with me tonight? Don't ghost me now, babe. You promised. Promised? The word hit me like a hammer. My pulse thudded in my ears, drowning out the quiet hum of the bedroom fan. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around the cold metal edges of her phone. The logical part of my brain screamed at me to put it down, to pretend I never saw anything, to shove it back onto the nightstand and roll over. But the rest of me, the part that suddenly felt like a stranger in his own home, couldn't look away. I swiped at the screen, but of course, it was locked. Her lock screen photo, a candid picture of us laughing on some forgotten vacation, now felt like a cruel joke. I never really thought about how she changed her password a few months ago. Just for security reasons, she had said. Right. The vibrations slowed, the last of the messages arriving in eerie silence. The sender's name repeated over and over. Daniel. I didn't know a Daniel. At least, I didn't think I did. But clearly, she did. I looked over at her, sleeping peacefully, her face soft and relaxed under the dim glow of the bedside lamp. The same woman who kissed me goodnight every evening. The same woman who still asked me how my day was, who laughed at my bad jokes, who held my hand absent-mindedly when we watched TV. And yet, who the hell was she, really? My phone was dead. No way to look him up. No way to piece this puzzle together. At least not yet. I took a slow, deep breath and set the phone back down exactly as it had been, careful not to disturb even the angle. I needed more. This wasn't the time to make accusations, not without proof, not without knowing everything. If she was hiding something, I wasn't going to let her keep me in the dark any longer. I lay there, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning in 100 directions. But one thought stood above the rest, solid and clear. Tomorrow, everything changes. Morning came too fast. Or maybe it didn't come at all. I wasn't sure if I had slept or if I had just drifted in and out of a restless haze, my mind tangled in the mess of those messages. When the alarm rang, she stirred beside me, stretching, sighing, blissfully unaware that something had shifted in the space between us. I lay still, watching her, waiting for a flicker of guilt, a sign that she could feel the weight of her deception pressing against her. But she yawned, reached for her phone, and without missing a beat, flicked it back into airplane mode before even unlocking it. A routine so practiced it was second nature. If she had any idea that I knew, she didn't show it. I forced myself to move, to act normal. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, stretched, the same way I had done 1,000 mornings before. The key to uncovering a lie is not to give away that you're looking for the truth. I learned that a long time ago. People don't hide things because they're good at lying. They hide them because they think no one is looking. So I didn't look. Not yet. Instead, I played the part of the unsuspecting boyfriend. I kissed her shoulder as I stood up, muttered something about a long day ahead. She smiled, half asleep, mumbling something about dinner plans. I said sure, whatever she wanted. And I meant it. I wanted her to plan something. I wanted her to act normal. I needed to see just how deep this thing went. The second I was out of the bedroom, I pulled out my laptop. Daniel. I had a name. That was more than enough to start. A quick search didn't give me much. Common name, too many profiles. But I wasn't looking for just anyone. I needed someone who fit into her world. So I narrowed it down. Her office. Her social circles. I checked the company's website, scrolled through the team page. No Daniel. Not there. That was the first crack in my assumptions. If he wasn't a coworker, then who was he? I dug deeper. Social media. I scrolled through her followers, her comments, the random likes on old posts that seemed out of place. And then, finally, I found him, buried in the middle of a group picture from a company retreat last year. No tags, no mention of a Daniel, but there he was. Just another face in the crowd. Tall, dark hair. A confident smile that felt a little too familiar now. I clicked on the image, scanned through the other people in it, and then my stomach turned. He wasn't just anyone. He was in multiple photos, always on the edge of a group, just outside the spotlight. A ghost in the background of her life. He wasn't a coworker. He was a client. I sat back, staring at the screen. A client. Someone she had no reason to be talking to at 3 in the morning. Someone who had no business calling her babe. The realization hit like a slow-burning fuse, sizzling towards something explosive. This wasn't some passing mistake, some drunken misstep she was trying to bury. This was a full-scale operation. Late-night messages. Secret rendezvous. An entire relationship unfolding right under my nose while she kissed me goodnight and told me she loved me. My hands clenched into fists. I had been patient. I had been quiet. But now? Now I was done watching from the sidelines. If she wanted to play this game, fine. But she had no idea that I had just started playing too. The rest of the day moved in a blur. I went to work, sat through meetings, nodded at all the right times, answered emails I barely read, and pretended like my world wasn't unraveling thread by thread. But in the back of my mind, everything was burning. My thoughts circled back to that name, Daniel, to the way her phone had exploded with messages the second airplane mode was off, to the way she had smiled that morning, completely unaware that the illusion she had built was starting to crumble beneath her feet. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger was a reaction. I wasn't reacting. I was calculating. If she was lying to me, how long had it been going on? If she had built an entire world where she played the loving girlfriend while sneaking around in the shadows, how far did the lie stretch? I refused to be the fool sitting at the table, eating from a plate she had already served to someone else. So, I did what any rational person would do when faced with a mystery. I started digging. And I didn't just scratch the surface. I dug deep. I called in a favor from an old friend who owed me. A tech guy. The kind of guy who could pull up just about anything with the right motivation. And my motivation? Well, it had never been clearer. He was quick, efficient. Sent me a list of Daniel's social media activity, work details, everything that was public and some things that probably weren't meant to be. I studied it like a puzzle, piecing together timelines, cross-referencing locations, trying to find the exact moment when my life had become a joke behind my back. The first real hit came when I checked my girlfriend's calendar. She was organized, painfully so. She loved structure, planning, making sure every detail of her day was set in stone. It made me laugh now, the irony of how meticulous she was with everything except hiding an affair. Because there, in plain sight, were the gaps, the missing hours, the work dinners that lined up just a little too perfectly with Daniel's travel schedule, the girls' nights that just so happened to overlap with his weekend conferences. Then there was the bank statement. She wasn't reckless, but she wasn't careful either. Small charges at restaurants I had never been to with her. Ride shares from places she never mentioned visiting. Hotel stays under her card. Tiny, insignificant, but there. The digital breadcrumbs of a person who thought she was smarter than she actually was. And as I scrolled through everything, my pulse stayed steady. My breathing remained even. Because now, I knew. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning around it, weaving it into our life so seamlessly that, had I not seen those messages by accident, I might have gone on for years without realizing. The thought of it made my skin crawl. The depth of deception wasn't just about another man. It was about control, about how easy it had been for her to play both sides without a single crack in her performance. But there was a crack now. She just didn't know it. When I got home that evening, she was already there, curled up on the couch, wearing one of my hoodies like she always did. She looked up, smiled, greeted me with the same warmth as always. "Hey babe, how was your day?" She had no idea. And that was the moment I decided. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. No, that was too easy. Too quick. She had spent months, maybe longer, lying to my face with a practiced ease that made my stomach twist. She had built an entire double life. So, I was going to let her keep lying. I was going to watch. And when she least expected it, I was going to burn it all down. The idea of confronting her outright felt like a waste. Too impulsive, too easy. If she had been lying to my face for months, maybe even longer, then she didn't deserve the luxury of a private fallout. She deserved something public, something that would hit her where it truly hurt. And nothing would shatter her carefully curated world more than being exposed in front of the one thing she had always cared about more than anything else, her family. Ever since we got together, she had painted herself as the golden child in her parents' eyes. The perfect daughter, the successful one, the responsible one, the one who did everything right while her brother, Ryan, bounced from job to job, and her sister, Claire, made questionable life choices that always left their parents in some state of disappointment. She was their shining star, the proof that at least one of their kids had turned out exactly as they had hoped. Every holiday, every family gathering, she basked in their praise, subtly making sure everyone knew how put together she was. I wanted to rip that illusion apart, piece by piece. So, over dinner that night, I laid the trap. "Hey," I said, keeping my voice light, casual. "It's been a while since we visited your parents, hasn't it?" She blinked, mid-bite, then smiled. "Yeah, I guess it has. We should probably go soon." I acted as if the thought had just come to me. What if we go this weekend? Make it a full thing. Your brother and sister could come too. I know your mom would love that. There it was. The flicker. Just for a second, her expression tightened, like the idea unsettled her, but she masked it quickly. "That actually sounds nice," she said, forcing enthusiasm. "It's been a while since we've all been together." I nodded, taking another bite of my food, pretending not to notice the way she swallowed a little too hard. That weekend, we made the drive up to her parents' house, an immaculate two-story home in a quiet, suburban neighborhood. The kind of house that looked perfect from the outside, much like the family that lived inside it. Her mother, Susan, greeted us at the door with her usual warmth, pulling her daughter into a tight hug before turning to me with that approving, motherly smile she always gave me. "I'm so glad you both could come," she said, ushering us in. "Ryan and Claire are already here. It's been too long since we had the whole family together." I smiled. "Yeah, it's great to see everyone." Inside, the house smelled like roasted chicken and fresh-baked bread. Everything was set up perfectly, as if her mother had been preparing for this all week. Her father, Greg, was already seated in his usual chair, nursing a glass of whiskey, nodding at me in his quiet but welcoming way. Ryan lounged on the couch, flipping through his phone, while Claire stood near the dining table, sipping a glass of wine. The perfect family scene. Except it wasn't perfect. Not anymore. We sat down to dinner, laughter filling the room as Susan gushed about how wonderful it was to have all her children in one place. Claire teased Ryan about his latest failed job attempt, and he rolled his eyes, making a sarcastic remark that sent the table into light-hearted chuckles. My girlfriend, no, her, sat there, smiling, playing her role flawlessly. The devoted daughter, the mature one, the successful one, and I let her have it, just for a little longer. Then, just as the conversation was shifting, I cleared my throat. Actually, there's something I wanted to bring up. Something important. The room quieted slightly, all eyes turning to me. She glanced at me, still smiling, but I saw it. The slight tension in her fingers as she set down her fork. What is it? Susan asked, ever the attentive mother. I exhaled slowly, as if weighing my words carefully. Well, I've just been thinking a lot lately. About trust, about honesty, about how, when you truly love someone, you tell them the truth, no matter what. Greg grunted approvingly, nodding. Damn right. Ryan, half interested, leaned forward. Where's this going? My eyes never left her. I guess I just want to know, when did honesty stop mattering? The air in the room shifted. She stiffened beside me. What are you talking about? I turned to her fully now, setting my hands on the table, leveling her with a look I knew she recognized. I'm talking about you. And Daniel. The room went dead silent. Claire set her wine glass down a little too hard, blinking. Who the hell is Daniel? Ryan sat up, suddenly more interested. Greg frowned. Susan's eyes flickered between us, confusion knitting her brow. Her face drained of color. I don't know what you mean. I let the moment breathe, let the weight of it settle over her like a storm cloud. You don't? I asked, tilting my head. Then why was he messaging you at 3 in the morning? Why was he calling you babe? Why do I have receipts of you meeting up with him? Hotel charges? Restaurant dates? Should I keep going? Her breathing turned shallow. She tried to laugh, to brush it off, but her voice cracked. I don't know what you're talking about. Susan's hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. Greg's face darkened. Is this true? Claire, ever blunt, turned to her sister with wide eyes. Wait, you cheated? Ryan let out a low whistle, shaking his head. Damn, that's messed up. I watched as she struggled to compose herself, eyes darting around the room, looking for an escape. But there wasn't one. Not this time. Susan's voice was barely above a whisper. Tell me it's not true. And in that moment, I saw it. The exact second her perfect world shattered. She looked at me, really looked at me, and she knew. She knew there was no way out of this. No lie she could spin, no excuse she could give that would make this go away. Not here. Not in front of them. Her mother, the one who had always believed she was flawless. Her father, who had spent years bragging about his perfect daughter. Her siblings, who had always played second fiddle to her shining reputation. She had spent a lifetime convincing them that she was the best, the smartest, the most successful. And now, in a single evening, I had taken that all away. I leaned back in my chair, watching as the weight of her choices came crashing down. And God, it was beautiful. The silence in the room was suffocating, thick with disbelief and betrayal. She sat there, frozen, her face pale as everyone stared at her. Her mother's eyes brimmed with unshed tears. Her father clenched his jaw so tightly I thought it might crack, and her brother and sister were both locked in wide-eyed shock. It was the perfect moment, the exact moment I had been waiting for. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a stack of crisp white envelopes. 5 in total, one for each person at the table, except for her. She wasn't going to need an envelope. She already knew what was inside. I didn't just come here to talk, I said calmly, placing the envelopes down one by one. I brought proof. The tension spiked like a lightning strike. Her breath hitched audibly. Her fingers dug into the napkin on her lap. Go ahead. I gestured toward them. Open them. Claire, ever the bold one, snatched hers up first, tearing it open like a kid on Christmas. Only what she found inside wasn't a present. It was a printout of text messages. Screenshots of late-night conversations, all time-stamped. Her lips parted as she scanned the page, her face morphing from confusion to fury. Are you freaking kidding me? She muttered under her breath, flipping to the next page. Oh my God, this is disgusting. Ryan followed suit, slower, his fingers tight around the edge of the envelope. As soon as he saw the photos, grainy but undeniable shots of his sister and Daniel together, arms wrapped around each other, slipping into a hotel lobby, his face twisted in disgust. You gotta be kidding me, he scoffed, shaking his head. You've been preaching at us for years, acting like you're better than everyone, and you've been out here sneaking around like this? Her mother had the envelope clutched in trembling hands, hesitating. But the curiosity, the need to know was too much. She pulled out the papers and gasped, eyes darting across the evidence. Her breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. No, this can't be. Greg, her father, was the last to open his. The moment his eyes landed on the first page, he slammed his fist onto the table so hard the silverware rattled. Are you serious? His voice was a roar, filled with rage and disappointment. This is what you've been doing behind his back? Behind our backs? Her head snapped up, wild-eyed, lips trembling. Dad, please. Don't you dare, he cut her off, his voice a razor blade slicing through the air. Don't you sit there and try to lie your way out of this. We have the proof, damn it. Claire tossed her envelope onto the table like it was radioactive. I cannot believe this. You act like you're better than me, like I'm the screw-up, like I'm some disappointment. Meanwhile, this is what you've been doing. Ryan leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. You really had us fooled, huh? All those years of you being Miss Perfect, turns out, you're just as trashy as the rest of us. Susan, her mother, still looked shell-shocked. I just don't understand, she murmured, eyes misty, barely able to hold the papers in her shaking hands. Why? Why would you do this? That was the moment her mask cracked. Completely. Tears welled up in her eyes, and her voice came out high-pitched and desperate. It's not what you think. Greg scoffed. Oh, really? Because it looks exactly like what it is. You cheating on your fiancé like a damn snake? She turned to me, eyes pleading. Baby, please, you have to believe me. I stood up, sliding my chair back with a slow, deliberate scrape against the hardwood floor. Don't, I said coolly. You don't get to baby me. You don't get to sit here, in front of your family, and try to gaslight your way out of this. I gave you trust. I gave you love. And this is what you gave me back. Tears streamed down her face, but I felt nothing. Not pity, not regret, just a strange, calm satisfaction. She turned wildly to her mother, to her father, to Claire and Ryan, as if expecting someone, anyone, to come to her defense. But all she got were blank stares, silent judgment. You ruined yourself, Claire said, voice dripping with venom. All that effort to make us look bad? All that bragging? You just burned it all to the ground. Ryan let out a low whistle. And the worst part? You didn't even get away with it. Damn. Greg pointed at the door. Get out. She choked on a sob. What? You heard me, he snapped. Get out of this house. Dad, please, Susan shook her head, her expression filled with sorrow. I don't even recognize you right now. And that was it. Her last lifeline, severed. I grabbed my coat, feeling an odd sense of relief wash over me. She could lie, she could cry, she could beg, but it didn't matter. Not anymore. The truth was out, and the perfect little world she had worked so hard to build, it had just collapsed, piece by piece, right in front of her eyes. As I walked toward the door, I turned back one last time, meeting her tear-streaked gaze with nothing but indifference. Hope it was worth it. And with that, I walked out, leaving her to drown in the ruins of her own deception. I walked out of that house feeling lighter than I had in months. The cold night air hit me like a cleansing wave, washing away every ounce of doubt, frustration, and anger I had carried with me for far too long. Behind me, I could still hear the muffled sounds of her sobs, her desperate voice pleading with her family, begging them to listen, to believe her, to somehow salvage what little dignity she had left. But I didn't look back, not even once. By the time I got to my car, I took one final deep breath, let my shoulders drop, and then, for the first time in a long time, I smiled. She had spent so long crafting this perfect image of herself, towering above her family, looking down on them with judgment, acting like she was superior. But tonight, I had taken that pedestal and shattered it beneath her feet. I hadn't just caught her. I had made sure that everyone who had ever believed in her saw the truth. There was no spinning this, no talking her way out of it. Her golden reputation, the foundation of her entire existence, had crumbled into dust in front of the very people she had spent her life trying to impress. And the best part? I didn't even have to raise my voice. I didn't need to yell, break things, or throw a fit. I just let the truth speak for itself. I got into my car, started the engine, and drove off, heading home. Not our home, though. I wasn't that stupid. I had already packed my essentials earlier that morning, booked a hotel for the next few nights, and scheduled a meeting with a lawyer for the following Monday. By the time she realized I wasn't coming back, I'd already be 3 steps ahead of her. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it. A text from Claire. Claire, hey, just wanted to say, damn, that was brutal, but also kind of satisfying. You deserve better. Drinks on me sometime? I chuckled, shaking my head. Maybe I'd take her up on that. As I pulled into the hotel parking lot, my phone buzzed again. This time, I didn't even have to look. I already knew who it was. Her. Calling. Probably sobbing. Probably begging. I let it ring. Then I blocked her number. This was over. She was over. And for the first time in a long time, my future belonged to me.